Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys can hear me okay. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to the Black Financial Channel. This is theblackfinancialchannel.com. I want to talk about student loans, and I want to talk about Joe Biden. I know that we talked about student loans a little bit before, but I thought that you guys might want to be informed on a piece of history that isn't talked about that much. If you want to understand the present, you got to understand history. And there is a really dark, secret, problematic history between Joe Biden and student loans, where your student loan debt, the reason your student loan debt is what it is, if you have student loans, is largely because of something that Biden pushed through back in 2005. And so since people don't talk about history, they don't talk about what's really going on in politics, I felt compelled to read an article to you. I'm literally going to read right from this article because I don't have a lot of time, but I thought it was worth discussing. So we're going to break this down on the Black Financial Channel. So get comfortable, buckle up your seatbelt. We're going to get started right now. Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. Welcome to the Black Financial Channel. That's theblackfinancialchannel.com. I want to ask you guys a question. How many of you have student loans? Give me a yes in the chat if you have student loans, if you have paid off student loans, whatever it is, right? If you're in the middle of it or dealing with it, either you've dealt with it in the past or you're dealing with it in the present, put a yes in the chat or a no in the chat if you've never had any student loans or you paid your student loans off. I'm going to tell you a little story about student loans and where they come from, pretty much why you have the student loan crisis right now. The reason I'm addressing this issue is because one of the things that the Biden administration has been discussing is fixing the student loan problem. And basically, it's something that needs to be fixed. I think it's something that needs to be done. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have claimed that that is their top priority, to fix the student loan crisis. Now, I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know if that makes me a jerk or not, but I'm a little bit skeptical from what I've read. I think they've talked about maybe forgiving $10,000 in student loans. I don't think that's enough. I think it should be more like $50,000 or more. So anyway, in fact, how many of you have more than $10,000 in student loan debt? Give me a yes if you have more than $10,000 in student loan debt. When I was on the faculty at Syracuse University, I think that the tuition at that time might have been $50,000, tuition, room, board, and everything included. Now it's about $72,000 a year. So that means that these students that come to Syracuse University, if they don't get any financial aid, if they borrow their way through, are going to owe, maybe $200,000 or more. If they get a master's degree, they can have an unsustainable amount of debt and literally die in debt. Why do I care about student loan debt as a Black person? It's because when you look at Black wealth and the fact that Black wealth is going backward, whether you have Democratic administrations or Republican administrations, Black wealth is always going down. It's largely because your highest income earners don't understand the game. They think that because their incomes are better, that they're doing better, but actually many of them are sitting on so much debt that they can never repay the debt. So a lot of our most talented, most extraordinary Black people actually die in debt. Which is a real interesting problem that we have. So anyway, let me move forward. So I'm gonna read this to you. Hit the thumbs up button, please, right now. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe button, and all that stuff. We need you to subscribe to the Black Financial Channel because we want to build something that is uniquely ours. This is an article in the UK Guardian, and it's called "How Biden Helped Create the Student Debt Problem He Now Promises to Fix." So basically, they're claiming that what's going on here is pretty much what I told you that a lot of politicians do. They will create a problem and then fix the problem. And if you don't know the history, if you don't know how the problem came to be in the first place, you will give them credit for creating a problem that they actually created themselves. And so, and it works. It works really well. It's no different from the grocery store that'll sell you the donuts and the sugary, fatty food in the front of the store and then sell you diabetes medication in the back. So they'll give you the diabetes and won't tell you how to avoid diabetes. They need you to get the diabetes so they can get you out of the diabetes. They need to create the mess so you can pay them to clean up the mess. This is the dark side of capitalism. It's something you got to watch out for. And so Biden basically, we talked a lot about his push on the incarceration stuff, but also with the student loan thing, I think there's something to be talked about here. So here's what the article says. It says in 10 weeks time, this is actually written when Biden was running for office back in December 2019 during the primaries. They said one of his promises is that he will fix the student loan crisis, saddling 45 million Americans with crippling debt, now totaling a staggering $1.5 trillion. One idea is to allow people struggling to repay private student loans owed to banks and credit card companies to discharge them in bankruptcy. The pledge is one of the most striking policies on offer from Democratic candidates in the 2020 race. Blah, blah, blah. The Republican-led bill tightened the bankruptcy code, with unleashing a huge giveaway to lenders at the expense of indebted student borrowers. At the time, it faced vociferous opposition from 25 Democrats in the U.S. Senate, but it passed anyway. So back in 2005, there was a bill that was pushed through that basically said that if you declare bankruptcy, you can't write off your student loans. You can write off all of the kinds of debt, but not your student loans. So why would they explicitly exclude student loans from that pact? Well, let's read more. Let's see. So the Republicans were supporting it because Republicans tend to take care of the rich. They take care of corporations. That's my issue with the Republicans. The Democrats, I guess, who are supposed to be the last stand against this sort of capitalist greed. Remember, they need money too, and they were being funded by corporations too, but being funded by banks as well. So 25 Democrats actually fought against the bill. 18 Democrats, led by Joe Biden, who was one of the most powerful Democrats in Congress at that time, actually pushed for the bill. And actually, they claim in this article that if Joe Biden had actually pushed against the student loan bill, it wouldn't have passed. That they were actually making that argument. In fact, Elizabeth Warren at that time actually wrote. She was a Harvard professor at the time, a Harvard law professor. I'm actually cool with Elizabeth Warren. I like what Elizabeth Warren does. She actually makes sense to me. Elizabeth Warren, who was a Harvard law professor at the time, actually wrote an entire research paper about Biden's support of this bill and how this bill was going to devastate college students. That was going to create massive amounts of student loan debt, which it did. It's going to put massive amounts of people into financial distress, which it did. And a lot of those people that were hit were people that look like you and I. So here's the deal. So it passed anyway, with 18 Democratic senators breaking ranks and casting their vote in favor of the bill. Of those 18, one politician stood out as an especially enthusiastic champion of the credit companies who, as it happens, had given him hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions. Joe Biden. Student debt has become a hot button issue of the Democratic campaign trail. Candidates are vying to position themselves as having the most radical solution to the crisis, which now holds more than 1 in 3 young adults in its grip, as well as 3 million Americans beyond the age of 60 still laboring to honor college loans they took out decades ago. So you have people that are in retirement that are, close to the end, who are still trying to deal with student loan debt that they picked up many, many decades ago. More than 1 million people default on their student loans every year. By 2023, the proportion of borrowers falling behind with repayments is expected to reach 40%, puncturing a massive hole in the system. Now, y'all know that when white folks get sick, black people get pneumonia. Y'all know this, right? Y'all know that whatever happens to them, it happens double to us. And so basically, if you look at the data, what you find, and again, this is, this college thing is very interesting to me because I've been a college professor for a long time, is you find that when black folks go to college, first of all, half of y'all don't graduate. Half of our people don't even finish college. That's okay, but it happens. But they walk away with debt. That's the most fascinating thing. They'll gladly give you a student loan, but will not give you a business loan. If I had a choice, I would rather have black people at least have a choice to get a business loan versus a student loan, because at least with a business loan, you have a good chance of generating the income level necessary to repay that debt. With a student loan, it's very difficult because wages of all workers have actually remained flat or gone down, including people that have degrees. This is not, having a degree doesn't exclude you from what's really been going on in this economy in terms of inequality. We talked about that before. So half of the students don't graduate. And then in college, I remember being very frustrated because it seemed like I had friends that would spend more time preparing for a step show than they would spend preparing for a math test. I didn't get that. I didn't understand that at all. But it's life that people live and do what they want. I'm not from this planet, just so you know. I don't know if any other aliens in the room. Are there any other aliens in the room who are convinced that you were born on the wrong planet, that there was another planet, that you were supposed to be born on Jupiter or Alpha Centauri or in that system, but you're on Earth and you didn't know how you got here? That's what I am. I was born on the wrong planet because I never fit in. But I'm glad because it helped me avoid a lot of problems. So effectively, with this student loan debt thing, I think half of all black college graduates default on their student loans. Half of them cannot repay their student loans. So here's the problem. College is supposed to be a good investment. And it is a good investment in terms of the fun you have, in terms of the fact that you do learn a lot, but it's a bad investment economically speaking, which is why the biggest contributors to family debt in many cases actually end up being the college graduates. because you get this massive amount of debt and you can't repay it. Whereas, for example, I have a cousin who didn't go to college, but he learned how to start a business, and he actually owns about $1.7 million in Bitcoin. And that's just one of his many investments, one of the things that he owns. And he didn't go to college or anything. He's 34 years old. He's supposed to be a struggling black man, but he's doing better than almost everybody he knows because he doesn't have any debt at all. So ultimately, I think it's a matter of really sort of rethinking how you look at this economic game, because if you don't change your thinking, then you're going to end up in a pretty bad situation. Now, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Also, you can get a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, by going to allblackeconomics.com. Also, you can get free training from the Black Business School at allblackeconomics.com. I don't want you to think that to go to the Black Business School, you have to have money. I'd rather give you free stuff first. So go to allblackeconomics.com, get on the list. We will make you smarter. We will give you more than any university can ever give you, more than your public school gave you, more than your parents gave you, etc. I have a PhD in this stuff. I know what I'm talking about. So just sign up, and I guarantee you'll be glad that you did. So the next thing here is it says, okay, so listen to this. It says, but very little discussion has been devoted to how this monumental student loan disaster came about. How was it, for instance, that the sum of outstanding educational loans borrowed from private financial entities shot up from $56 billion in 2005 to $150 billion in just 10 years, contributing to an overall student debt burden second in the U.S. only to home mortgages? So they're asking this question: how did we get to the point where we had this crisis in the first place? Right? You got to reverse engineer the crisis and figure out, how did the student loan crisis get out of hand? That requires digging into history. That requires a deep dive. Most people don't do deep dives. Most people don't know history. They don't think about history because they don't even know it. They just think that things just are the way they are because they just got this way. But you got to look at the history, right? So what they're saying is that Joe Biden and his buddies pushed through this bill in 2005, which made it impossible for people to get rid of their student loans in bankruptcy. If that had never happened, the student loan debt would probably be maybe half of what it is right now. Number two, what they're arguing in this article is that because companies felt safe now, they said, well, now we got them trapped. Now we've got them, they're guaranteed to be in financial slavery for life. Then we're going to go ahead and loan more money because they're feeling less risk. They're feeling like, well, I'm not scared of losing my money now because now I got the backing of the federal government to step in and shut you down and take all your assets if you ever dare try to cross me, right? So the government has become a private military, so to speak, not physically, but sort of like a financial military that's going to come in and make sure the companies get paid. This is one of the things I've told you about American politics. The politicians don't serve the people. They serve the corporations. They serve the wealthy. And so, but you're an important part of that process because they've got to buy your vote. They've got to market to you to get you to vote. So because technically you can't get elected without votes, right? But the way they get the votes is they use the money to get the votes. That's why Warnock had to raise $124 million from corporations to get all of your votes. So when they tell you your vote counts, it does count. When they tell you your vote matters, it certainly matters. The problem is that it doesn't add value to your life. It adds value to the life of the corporation who pay for your vote. So to some extent, this whole system is built on a type of political and economic slavery where you are certainly a commodity in the process, but being a commodity of the system is not the same as being a beneficiary of the system. Do you get what I'm saying? That you are a commodity, not a beneficiary. Like if I have a car, I need oil for my car, but the oil doesn't benefit from the car. I benefit from the car. If I have a cart and I need the cart to be pulled, I might need a donkey to pull the cart, but the donkey is not a beneficiary of that process. The donkey is a commodity in that process. If I'm winning a horse race, I need horses. I really need horses, but the horses are not beneficiaries in that system. They are commodities in that system. Do you follow what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? So I think it's important. I'm really talking to the people that really want to be smart about this. Because when they run around here telling you that your vote is so important, and if your vote didn't matter, then they wouldn't try so hard to suppress it. Well, that's true. Your vote does matter. But the question, the bigger issue is that the vote doesn't benefit you. It benefits the people who pay for your vote, who sponsored you, who paid for your slavery, right? Okay, so let me keep going. Hit the thumbs up button. Please hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. Okay, so they said, let's see. So up until 2005, private student loans were eligible for bankruptcy protections, just like other forms of private credit. But in that year, Congress passed the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act, a law that made it vastly more difficult for struggling former students to rebuild their lives by discharging debts and starting over. Earlier this year, Biden tried to justify his backing of the 2005 act. His campaign spokesman told Politico that, quote, knowing that the bill was likely to make it through the Republican-led Congress, he worked to moderate the bankruptcy bill and protect middle-class families. He believed that if you have income and consumer debts you can pay, that you should agree to a repayment plan that you can afford. So what they're saying is that Biden knew the bill was going to go through. And he says, since it's going to go through anyway, let me go in and at least make sure that that it doesn't hurt and crush middle-class working families too bad. That sounds pretty noble, right? That sounds quite like okay, I can almost understand that. But let me kind of go a little deeper on this. This article is great because they actually provide a little bit of insight into that argument. So they said dig into the record and you find a more complicated story that puts Biden in a less flattering posture. His offer to the caucus goers of Iowa when they gather on February 3rd is in effect that he will reverse a damaging provision that in 2005 he himself voted through. Despite his protestations, it is indisputable that Biden was an avid supporter of the 2005 bill as a whole and of its overall thrust of tightening up the bankruptcy code, largely to the benefits of lenders at the expense of distressed families who would find it harder to file for bankruptcy. Quote, Biden was one of the most powerful people who could have said no, who could have changed this. Instead, he used his leadership role to limit the ability of other Democrats who had concerns and who wanted the bill softened, said Melissa Jacoby, a law professor at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, specializing in bankruptcy. So what Professor Jacoby is saying, Melissa Jacoby, a law professor at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, is saying that Biden presents himself as a passive sort of participant in this horrible process where he just sort of did the best he could to minimize the damage because the Republicans are going to do what they want. She's basically saying, no, Biden was powerful. Biden could have fought back, but instead Biden, allegedly, according to Professor Jacoby, Biden did to Democrats what people like Al Sharpton do to black people. Meaning that Biden basically went to the ones who stood up and said, we're not signing this. This is not acceptable. And basically controlled them, basically shut them down, managed them, almost the way when you had Ice Cube that stepped up. And, anybody else give me a yes or no if you noticed how it was black people that were stepping up to go after Ice Cube and to discredit Ice Cube when he asked for something from black people. It was as much black people as it was anybody else, even D.L. Hughley. And it disappointed me very much to hear this, but I remember D.L. Hughley basically arguing, well, who are you? You're just a rapper. Who gave you credentials to even talk about this issue? And Ice Cube, of course, came back and said, but you're just a comedian. Like, why are you, and why are you fighting so hard to make sure black people don't get anything? Like, what's wrong with you, right? And I actually agreed with that. It made me kind of wonder who was in DL's ear, what was he thinking, who was he actually helping, who are you working for if you're working that hard to keep black people from getting anything for their vote? So with that said, though, they're claiming that Biden was instrumental in working on behalf of the Republicans that wanted to get the bill passed through. Why is that? Well, as a finance guy, I'm always looking at the money. I'm always asking, like, okay, show me the money. Show me what was going on financially. Because if you follow the money, you learn almost everything you need to know. Most of the time in politics, if you follow the money, then that solves all your problems and answers all of your questions. So let's dig a little deeper. Let's see if following the money can help us. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button real quick while I grab. I got like 2 or 3 pairs of glasses because I can't find a pair that I actually like. So I literally am in this this purgatory, a glasses purgatory right now, trying to find a pair that works. Anyway, I'll do it later. All right, so hit the thumbs up button if you haven't done it yet. Okay, so listen to this. This legislation. Wait, so Ted Kennedy. Here's what Ted Kennedy said about the bill. Ted Kennedy said, "This legislation breaks the bond that unites America. It sacrifices Americans to the rampant greed of the credit card industry." Kennedy warned that even before the new provision kicked in, young people were dropping out of college because of the cost of student loans. They can't pay them. Elizabeth Warren, shout out to Elizabeth Warren on this. Let me tell you what Elizabeth Warren said. She, when an earlier version of the bill was in front of Congress, a respected law professor at Harvard Law School was so incensed by its terms in 2002 that she wrote an entire paper decrying Biden's forceful support of it. The author, Elizabeth Warren, said the changes would be to the detriment of one group above all others, women. Senator Biden supports legislation that will fall hardest on women. Well, she says women, I'll say black people, but in this particular case, I'm in agreement with what she says. Why? The answer will have to come from him. He is now. She's talking specifically about Biden. Pay attention now. You can learn a lot about politicians by looking at what they were saying in the past, what they were saying to each other, who they were talking about. Elizabeth Warren wasn't just talking about the bill; she was talking specifically about Joe Biden. So Warren, who's let's see. So she says, why? The answer will have to come from him. He is a zealous advocate on behalf of one of his biggest contributors, the financial services industry. So basically what Elizabeth Warren was saying is that the reason that Joe Biden is in support of this bill that will make it illegal for people to write off their student loans in a bankruptcy is because he's getting support from the financial services industry. Let me read more and you'll know why. Warren, whose decision to enter politics was inspired in no small part by her experiences of fighting Congress over bankruptcy laws, goes on to note in her essay that Biden's, quote, energetic work on behalf of the credit card companies has earned him the affection of the banking industry and protected him from any well-funded challengers for his Senate seat. Warren's suspicion that Biden's enthusiasm for toughening bankruptcy laws came from his close ties to the credit card companies persists to this day. Professor Jacoby said, quote, I don't know how else to explain his stance on bankruptcy policy for financially distressed families other than his relationship with the consumer credit industry. There really isn't another plausible explanation. As a U.S. Senator from Delaware, a state that hosts many of the largest financial corporations in the country, that relationship came naturally. So friendly were his links with the Delaware Incorporated MBNA, a major credit card company since taken over by Bank of America, that in 1999 he felt it necessary to declare, I'm not the senator from MBNA. Campaign finance watchdogs underline this point. In the 2003 to 2008 senatorial election cycle, Biden received more than $500,000 in help from credit card companies, financial services, and banks, according to Open Secrets. In the lead up to the 2005 Bankruptcy Act, Biden tried to justify his support of the legislation by pointing to abuse of the bankruptcy system by people who should at least pay back some of their debts. By requiring better off borrowers to repay what they could afford, private lenders would be able to reduce their interest rates to the benefit of all consumers. Neither claim turned out to be true. Later reviews found that the level of abuse in the student loan system was relatively insignificant. So in a way, it's interesting because it goes back to, you know how Trump was basically saying that the election was fraudulent. It was fraudulent. You know, they stole the election and there was no evidence to support that. Well, in a way, it's interesting. He says voter fraud is rampant. The Republicans always say every election, the Republicans always say that voter fraud is out of control and stuff like that. And then they say, well, there's no evidence of that. Well, he was basically saying that the fraud amongst people declaring bankruptcy on student loans was out of control and that they had to stop the fraud on student loans. And so basically that was Biden's justification for supporting the bill. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. And also don't forget our generational wealth conference is tomorrow. So we're going to cover a lot of good stuff from wills and trusts to credit. We're going to cover wills, trust, credit, stock market investing, real estate investing, tax strategies, and insurance. So if you're interested in any of those things, join us at generationalwealthconference.com. That's the URL on the screen. We get started tomorrow morning. All right, so let me keep going. And if you're watching the recording, then you could probably still get the recording at that URL. All right, so let's see here. So let me keep reading. What the 2005 Act did was to herald an explosion in private student loans. Lenders that are now confident, knowing that it would be more difficult in the future for debts to be written off, open their arms wide to new borrowers. Today, the total outstanding private student loans stand at $123 billion. That's only about 8% of the overall $1.5 trillion debt mountain, but it is responsible for much of the human suffering, with the average private student loan debt amounting to almost $14,000 per person. So what they're basically saying is this is real interesting. So when you have a lot of debt available in a particular industry for a particular commodity, in this particular case, the commodity was education. Whenever a lot of debt is available, what that does is it pushes up the price of that asset. So I would argue, I wouldn't be surprised if I looked at the data and found that the cost of college attendance was going up in conjunction with the availability of student loans. right? So think about it like this. Let's say Jay and Russ and Frederick and I, let's say that we're all bidding on a candy bar and we have to pay, and we're all really hungry. We're in the desert and we're bidding on, buying this candy bar. And let's say we can only pay with the money that's in our pocket. Well, then maybe Fred, he bids $3. Maybe Russ bids $6. Maybe I then bid $7, and then Jay bids $12, right? But the number is going to be kept relatively low. Now, let's say that somebody comes in and says, I'm willing to loan anybody up to $500 to buy this candy bar. Well, what that's going to do is it's going to push up the price of that asset, because you're going to have more, you're going to be throwing more money at it. More money will be available for the purchase of the asset. So sometimes when you think that the availability of credit is a good thing, it can be, but sometimes it can actually cause inflation. With cheap money inflates the price of assets. That's why the stock market is going up. It's because money has become very cheap. Interest rates have been kept very low by the Fed. The money supply has been increased. So what that does is that tends to push up prices. So I would argue that this is part of the reason why the cost of education has gone out of control. And I know right now, our 17-year-old is about to go to college, and I know it's extremely expensive. It's kind of crazy to see these prices now. So long story short, what's interesting about Joe Biden and his student loan position is that Joe Biden literally could be considered to be responsible for the crisis as it exists. If Joe Biden really wants to help fix the student loan crisis, then he could actually go back. I don't think he would do this, but if he were able to reverse what he did, that right there would solve most of your problems, because then most of you could just go declare bankruptcy and wipe your loans out completely. But they can't do that because, again, the money is coming from the banking industry. They don't want to get screwed financially. So what will probably happen is you're going to get some sort of lightened version of student loan debt relief, something that's not going to make a big difference in your life, because at the end of the day, they're always going to take care of the wealthy. They're always going to take care of the corporations. Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter, because the corporations are the ones that are paying the bills. That's why I tell you guys that the best way for you to get ahead financially is to become an investor and to own assets. When you're talking to politicians, talk about reparations, nothing else. I don't get into social issues too much, because that's a distraction. They give you the free stuff, but they keep the financial stuff for themselves. No. I want the money, right? Give me the money and I'll solve the social issue on my own, because your biggest social issue in America is directly linked to money anyway, right? So long story short, I think it's very, very important for you to get smarter about this and to kind of know what's going on. So I thought I would share this little piece of history. I hope this was helpful to you. And that's pretty much all I wanted to share with you today. So make sure you subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, all that good stuff. And also, if you haven't learned to buy stock yet or anything like that, or you want to learn how to invest, we will get you started for free. You can go to firstshareofstock.com. The URL is right there on the screen, and you'll get lots of free stuff from the Black Business School. We'll hook you up. We'll take care of you. We'll make sure you're good. So take care. Have a good night, and I'll see you soon. And if you want to join us tomorrow for the Generational Wealth Conference, there's the URL. It's generationalwealthconference.com. So feel free to join us. It's going to be 2 days of intense learning. When you walk away, you'll be a better, stronger, smarter person. I guarantee that. So take care. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good day. Peace.